Well, Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer are not making things easier for Ohio State coach Ryan Day. Those are the last two coaches at Ohio State who weren't an interim coach, and they both won national championships at Ohio State. But man, they're really laying it on thick. If you had not seen what Urban Meyer said earlier this year, he said this is the one of the most talented rosters in the last decade, maybe ever. Um, and then Tressel came through with not the same, over the top that Urban had to say, but something very similar. He's talking about the talent everywhere. And guys, listen, Ohio State's never had a talent problem. They're very gifted. C.J. Stroud is probably the best. I don't know if Joe Burrow is a young quarterback, but C.J. Stroud is probably the best, or certainly near the top of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. I mentioned Joe Burrow, Urban Meyer's decision to not use Joe Burrow is a confusing one to me, but nonetheless, um, Ohio State's not going to have a talent problem. And I don't think that Tressel or Herb are doing Ryan Day any favors. When you are not the head coach of a team and you are clearly sympathetic to the team, the clip that I'm watching from an Ohio television station, Channel 10, uh, I mean, Tressel's got an Ohio State hat on. Herb, I don't know if they are allowing him to do that anymore with his situation with Fox and the Big Ten Network being on, the Big Ten being on Fox all the time, and him being a color commentator, or him being a commentator or not. But he really shouldn't have Ohio State stuff on. But nonetheless, um, they're not going to have to coach this team. Ryan Day will have to. And it reminded me of Jim Donnan's talk, if you want to call it that, to a Bulldog club. Now, what I don't remember about that time in the year 2000 was if that was at the Atlanta Bulldog Club. So let me rewind a little bit here. Kirby doesn't do these. He never has, actually. And that's his prerogative. But years gone by, Coach Richt, Mark Fox, sometimes Andy Laners, they would go around the state and talk to different Bulldog clubs. It got to the point with Coach Richt that he would probably do like Atlanta, maybe a big one out of state, like either Dallas or Jacksonville or Charlotte. And he would do a few, but like at the beginning, Mark was doing like Augusta, Macon, Atlanta, Chattanooga. Like he was, and there were times he did Columbus and like small towns. And in the year 2000, at some point, I believe it was at the Bulldog Club in Atlanta, which is like a huge, it would be thousands and thousands of people. You would see, a lot of people there. But anyway, I was not at this event specifically, and the Jim Donnan said that the year 2000 team was the team that he had waited his whole coaching career to coach. Now that's a paraphrase. I don't have the exact quote, but that was basically what it was. And this is not going to happen to Ryan Day. But later that year, Jim Donnan lost his third straight game to Georgia Tech, which is a great way to get fired at Georgia, and that's exactly what happened. And I think, to me, the lesson learned there was, if you didn't already know it, was don't egg on your fan base. Don't have your fan base believe that they're about to see something absolutely special when you don't know it. And the fact is, none of us know looking forward what these teams will be like. Like Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, maybe Texas, but certainly the first three I mentioned there, they're all loaded up. I mean, they all have great, great players. I mean, Ohio State does not have a better quarterback than Georgia does, but they have better running backs. The guys in the secondary, they are on the same level as Georgia. I don't think the linebackers are better, but you get my point, which is both these teams, they got some real players. What you're not hearing from Kirby and folks at Georgia or sympathetic to Georgia, Matt Stinchcomb or Shock or whoever. You're not hearing this team is something like I've never seen before. Having covered Georgia the amount of time that I have, in 2021, it was pretty clear how good Georgia was. But and I'll get to what happened and what we didn't see coming along the way here. But my argument was, and I may be making that my argument here in 24 pretty quick. I don't know. We'll see. It's hard to make the same exact argument. But in 21, I was saying, hey, listen, it's time to win the national championship. This team is great. They're really good. They're an outstanding team. And, Kirby is a very good head coach. At times, he's elite. It's time for Georgia to win the national championship. It's been too long. It had been 40-something years. And it was plenty enough time. What we did not know, and when I was saying that, my assumption was that JT Daniels was going to be the quarterback. Well, he wasn't. Had I known that Stetson Bennett would be the quarterback, I would have never said that stuff. Why? Because I was ignorant about the situation. Everybody was. We don't know what will happen with Ohio State. And by the way, I do think Georgia, it's hard to say it's time to win the national championship when you just won 2 of the last 3. But I'll put it to you this way. They have an outstanding opportunity this season to win the national championship. People talk about the schedule and the road games, and those are challenging. But they are opportunities more than they are hurdles. I mean, you've got a real chance to win big games on the road. We don't know, like Alabama and Texas both, I think, to some degree Ole Miss. We don't know with the change in coach at Bama. I mean, changes everywhere. We don't know what they will be like at the end of the season. I don't think they're going to have 3 losses, but I certainly don't think they're going to be undefeated. So we don't know how far Alabama will slide from where they are accustomed to. Texas, they're coming into a new league. There's a lot of transition there on their defensive side of the ball. I mean, we're just going to see. But, there's a real opportunity for Georgia to go get big wins on the road. As it turns out, a season ago, their biggest wins were at home. And people didn't see that coming. They didn't think Ole Miss would end up in the top 10 at the end of the season. They didn't think Missouri would end up that way. But they did. So, is it possible that Clemson could win the ACC and you play them in the first game? You have an opportunity there. You got an opportunity to go to Tuscaloosa. You got an opportunity to go to Texas. You got an opportunity to go to Ole Miss. You host Auburn. You host Tennessee. You get to play at Tech on a Friday night. Everybody's going to be watching. You get to play, in theory, in an SEC championship game. You get to play Florida. These are all spotlight games. So Georgia got a real opportunity this year. Is it time? That's probably the wrong nomenclature to use or terminology, but it's an opportunity for sure. Now, for Ohio State, they can get off to a pretty quick start. The beginning of this schedule is not good. They're playing teams that are not good. Akron, Western Michigan. Like, they get out of September without playing a legitimate team. They're going to play Michigan State on the road. Michigan State is not good. So, certainly not coming into the season. And you're hosting Iowa, who cannot score. So these first, 5 games just basically serve as a warm-up to the trip to Oregon. That's a big game for them. That is probably the game of their season, Ohio State. And so for all of this talk from guys who are not coaching the team and don't see it every single day and don't get the reports, and, Urban Meyer has always had a big mouth. He's always had something to say, and that's fine. A lot of times he's backed it up, but he doesn't really know what the hell's going on up there. He really doesn't. If he did, he's not doing Ryan Day any favors if he does. But he's not there every day. And, I just can't get away from him picking Notre Dame over Alabama in 2012. He really picks with his heart a lot. He's got his heart on his sleeve. He does that a lot. And we've seen, that's not always he goes with his heart a little too much for me. and Notre Dame is there. Certainly, he'll pick Utah whenever he's becoming Lou Holtz, which is what you don't want. Which is this guy who has won a national championship. I mean, Urban's a better by far coach than Lou Holtz ever thought about being, but you don't want someone just consistently going to pick their team. That's kind of annoying. And Lou Holtz would do it all the time. He picked South Carolina against Georgia all the time. He would pick Notre Dame to win these games where they had it was evident Notre Dame's no good. So what you're not him doing that is not very helpful. I will say that Urban specifically. Jim Tressel, it's just a little bit more of a shove. Like it's one more thing that Ryan Day is going to have to hear about and do. And look, Ohio State's been long on talent lately, and they've been short on accomplishments. This is a program that has probably come within 2 plays of winning a national championship, 1 or 2 plays in the 2022 Peach Bowl. They lost. They got beat pretty bad by Alabama in that national championship game. But these guys are not a bunch of punks. They know what they're doing. They're really good. The challenge for Ohio State won't be September. It will be December and beyond. And that's where they've struggled lately, December and beyond. Thanks for watching.